Well, welcome. It's 5 o'clock somewhere with our special guest, Matt Lasher, Director of Marketing, West Herr. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for
In your
having me
car?
on the show. 5 o'clock somewhere at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Like no judgment if you want to have a beer, but not you because you're driving. Mike, you.
I'll try
Uh,
not to.
yeah. There you go. Well, glad you guys can come today. We're going to talk about this is where we just basically talk about all the hottest things in automotive. We're talking a lot about inventory lately. It's coming back. Stellantis is having some issues with that. Maybe not. Maybe it's getting more regular. So, Matt, you handle tons of stores. How many stores does West Herr have now?
39 stores, Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse, New York.
Amazing. Congratulations on the most recent additions. So, tell us about the inventory status. What's going on?
Well, I think first to just start, so we have about 2,400 used cars in stock, about 5,700 new cars. We share our inventory across the group, so same store brand of like Chevy or whatever shares new cars, and our entire group shares used cars across the group. We use a Draver as a logistics technology to
Oh,
facilitate swapping cars in and around. And we've been using Viauto for like ever, 15 years or something on market-based pricing kind of style. And we use 360 booths to merchandise our cars. What else? I don't know. What do you want to talk about with inventory?
Well, what do you guys you guys are interesting because West Herr operates as more of like a tier two type because you guys have such a big footprint within Western New York. And shout out, go Bills, Bills Mafia. Um, the what are you guys seeing? Are you guys still seeing pretty high demand on the used car side with interest rates being high, and we're starting to see a lot of manufacturers drop in some pretty heavy incentives? Like, what are you guys seeing at West Herr in terms of that, like shopping behavior?
Well, on the new car side, definitely incentives via APRs specifically, less so on the subvented lease rates, but then less on customer cash, but mostly subvented rates. There's a bunch of OEMs that have 0% and things of that nature. So there's a lot of pushing against the maybe narrative that there's a lot of elevated interest rates through indirect and sort of those standard pathways. So OEMs are trying to find their slot there a little bit. But the consumer demand is still really, really high. January was tough in Buffalo. It was the first month in a long, long time where it was not a positive financial statement. But January in Buffalo historically has always been a very difficult month to make money in the car business. So that was sort of a little bit back to reality pre-COVID maybe. But consumer demand is really strong, still really strong. New car deliveries are up a ton year over year, and our used cars. Our inventory is down from maybe a height of about 4,000 used cars during COVID to about 2,400 now. But the same problem, Mike, we've spent a lot of time, you and I, talking about affordability and like that general problem for consumers is very much still alive and well. Customers need to be guided through what is reasonable for me to afford. What are my financial terms going to look like? And the dealerships that can do that sort of proactively and in an informed, transparent kind of way are doing better than the dealers that stumble through that process, right? So I think ultimately consumer demand continues to be there. What is also true is that negative equity is coming back very strong into the trade cycle. So that obviously puts challenge on payments and all sorts of things. Western New York and West Herr in general used to be a very, very high lease percentage kind of place for new cars. In some brands, 60, 70, 75% of the new car sales were leases. And that has come way back now. So under 50%, I think, at last check. So, yeah, but the business is still strong and car dealers are still making a lot of money and like there's still a lot of optimism, I think, to be had. But you need to do your stuff right. Merchandising matters, pricing matters, acquisition matters, having a wholesale strategy matters. Like all of those things still matter.
Yeah. So what about because you always approach things from a interesting perspective. Like and for the people that don't know, Matt created a tool when he was talking about affordability, which is called Streamlined. Like when you were creating that product, and I think that of everything that's going on right now with the interest rates and affordability and stuff, how did you like come up with that like workflow to say, hey, there's the natural process for buying a car. There's the credit, there's the payments and the rates, and then also on the affordability side, like within you guys, like how did that come to fruition with West Herr? I mean, it's so timely right now with everything that's going on. Like I can't imagine how that's not installed with like everyone at the any dealership or dealer group using that in their process.
Yeah, and
Well, I
also just
appreciate the
give
plug.
a bit of
Yeah, go ahead,
also
Ilana.
context of what the tool is for those listening who don't know it.
Sure, yeah. So Streamline is a budget calculator and vehicle selection tool for dealers, and it's a lender navigator platform for lenders. Okay, so it got started humbly by John Schultz, who's the founder of Streamline. He is the director of subprime financing at West Herr. So he's been at West Herr for like 20 years. Prior to that, he worked at Ford Credit. So John started with a spreadsheet that helped him find cars that customers could afford, but more importantly, get approved on. That spreadsheet turned into a SaaS product, turned into every store at West Herr using it, turned into hundreds of dealers across the country using it during COVID. And now we're really focused on the lender relationships and triangulating and translating lender programs with dealers at the point that the dealer needs it, which is really the point of decision. It's not necessarily upfront, but Streamline in the front of the house, to Ilana's question, really is about guiding vehicle selection by a customer's budget. So credit score and income are material factors that drive decisions. And then LTV or loan structure, the way the dealership structures a deal, matters a great deal for approvals, right? So basically Streamline's combining those two things against the dealership's inventory and showing customers cars transparently in real time that have a very high likelihood of getting approved. Nobody wants to go to a dealership and buy an Escalade and then leave with a Corolla, right? So like, unfortunately, that stuff
Big
happens every
swing.
day. Right. I mean, I came in, I was excited about this Escalade, and now you tell me I
Yeah.
can't get approved for it. I've spent all day here. Everybody's in the system is pissed. The customer is pissed. They waste a bunch of time. The sales manager is upset they didn't get a deal. Finance is upset at the sales manager for structuring a poor deal, and the lender is
Yeah.
upset that they had to look at an application that made no sense. So everybody, I call that the great train wreck. Greg Goebel, an industry guy, I think coined the term back in like '06. But this problem still exists every day, and it's gotten harder, or maybe back to normal, now that the COVID sort of weirdness has gone away. We're just back to navigating how do we put deals together. And I think seasoned salespeople or seasoned car people understand this problem. Many car people joined us during COVID, the last couple years. They know no other way
Yeah.
other than free money and inflated equity values and customers
Yep.
coming in with
Yeah.
$10,000 down and all that stuff. And that doesn't happen anymore because customers don't have $10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I answered the question maybe like where Streamline came from, I think, right? But it's fun to like sort of live in both worlds. We get to see Streamline in action every day at West Herr. But now what's cool is being able to learn a little bit more about the lender space and how they manage risk and how they define risk, and how they want to communicate that back to the dealer. It's in both parties' best interest to understand that,
Right.
as well as they can.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's so cool that you guys saw, and like I said, I've known West Herr back when West Herr built their own CRM, they built their own website. So you guys have a really unique history of like looking at a problem and then either solving it with technology or people, which I always think is always very, very cool. So outside of that and the payments and stuff, like putting your marketing hat back on for 39 stores, and I'm sure that 39 stores is growing. Like, where do you see dealers? Like, what's the next like frontier of like? I know everyone always says like, well, you got to get back to the basics and whatnot, but like, what is the next thing that you guys see as a challenge? A, operating a regional dealer group, and then B, like marketing to those people. Like, what are you guys looking at right now?
Well, I mean, look, loyalty is maybe at a decline generally for customers, but I'll give a shout out to somebody I was just with before this call, UVI, and your own sort of walking us through the service lane experience. So West Herr at a macro, 500,000 ROs last year. Okay, we sold about
Wow.
60,000 cars, something like that. So it's about 10 times more interaction in the service department than in sales. Every salesperson knows the best place to get a car is from the service lane. But there's some friction in triangulating those two things. And so I think that there's a huge acquisition opportunity for all dealers, including West Herr, to be better about proactively approaching customers with, hey, here's what your car's worth. Here's what a replacement vehicle could look like. Here's why you don't need to put maybe tires on your car and it'd be better served to trade it in, right? Those types
Right.
of conversations maybe, I think are a huge opportunity. No, you don't have to go to an auction. You don't have to go find somewhere and ship it back and all this stuff. The car is like right here, right in Western New York. So I think that's a huge opportunity. And we were doing a lot of that pre-COVID with like auto alert, life cycle, mining, service lane sort of activation. But I think that there's ways to do that. And UVI is an interesting piece of technology that can do it transparently, real time, basically, with the customer. And I think that's a cool thing. But moving forward beyond that, I mean, I think what you said sort of dismissively is more appropriate. Getting back to the basics and like executing really well, I think is
Yeah.
actually probably an important thing. Like don't overlook that executing day in, day out is like really the secret to it. It's like nobody makes you go to the gym, right? Or holds you accountable for going to the gym. But if you can discipline yourself to go to the gym every day, well, 6 months from now, you'll be in a better position than you were today. Same thing applies with execution at the dealership or like tending to a garden or whatever, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You have to put in the discipline. And Scott Beeler, who's our president and CEO at West Herr, has been really trying to preach about discipline, right? Discipline, just getting back to looking at your opportunities from yesterday, calling the customers back from today or the day before, doing what you said you were going to do, saying you're sorry when you make a mistake and making people better than even. Really just like those are some of our tenets of just operating from a disciplined point of view. And don't take customers for granted. Like I think that's the biggest thing. Dealers have had a lot of success in the last several
Yeah.
years, which creates ego and like arrogance about how good we are. But any dealership that's paying attention would, I think, acknowledge they didn't do anything material to have a 4x increase in profitability. They were the
Right.
same person they were in 19, but in 21, they made 4 times more money. So it's
Right.
about being true to like understand like there were some macro things that happened and you got to get back to being humble, being a servant, being caring about your community, like all
Yeah.
the things.
It's
I
like
agree. You
it's
also
like
mentioned that you have all these people that started during COVID and the demand was high. Demand was high, supply was low. They're just making free money. Like go back to the
yeah.
basics because inventory is normalizing, and they need to know how to operate when it's not in this like fake world of the past year for automotive. So I think going back to the basics has that sort of theme as well. Sorry, Mike, I cut you
Yeah,
off.
absolutely.
No, I was going to give I was just going to give a quote is like in a bull market, and people don't know what a bull market is. It's when like stocks and if you're into crypto, all that stuff is going up. Is like everyone's a genius in a bull market. Like you
Oh,
can throw a
obviously.
dart and get it, and that kind of sits in like to your point of like in 19, what happened from 19 to 21? Well, nothing really, but there was people had a lot more money. People were driving cars and stuff. So, you hit the nail on the head is that, everyone's a genius in a bull market, but then,
Well, what
when
about
you get
this?
down,
What about this objection? Vendors can appreciate this, I think. You're pitching a car dealer to like use a product, right? And during COVID, it was, no, times are really good right now. We don't need
yeah,
that.
I don't
We're
need to
good right
market.
this minute. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't need any of those tools. Now that times are coming back to how they were before, well, times are kind of tough right now. I can't really invest in that right this minute. So
Yeah.
like you're getting the excuse, it's the same excuse. It sounds different, but it's really the same excuse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I remember that. Those
Yeah,
were,
any excuse. Well, thank you, Matt, so
Yeah.
much. It's always good to get a glimpse into what West Herr has been up to and to catch up with old friends. So thank you for joining. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, even though it's 2:30 and we got some, like a little bit of pushback on that. See, we don't know what Mike is drinking. Mike can be drinking anything. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. We don't.
There's
We
something
struck
in
up
that.
a sponsorship deal with Yeti, so
There you go. Use his code Mike 15 to get your
Yeah.
discount.
We'll get
Thank you
Nate
so much.
going light scale.
There we go. Until next time. Thank you again.
Awesome.
All right. See ya.